Before we get into any of it, Anthony, give us a read here with FanDuel.
Yeah, guys, the NBA playoffs for the rest of the league are still in full swing, and every night delivers a highlight-worthy performance, major momentum shifts, and you can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, and fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with some in-game parlays? Are you new to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com/UCSS and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Guys, we are beyond just the Cavs. I mentioned this briefly yesterday, but we are one win away for Oklahoma City, the Knicks, and Minnesota from having the four teams in the Final Four be three teams that have never won a championship, and a fourth team, the Knicks, that hasn't won a championship since 1973.
Yeah, that's exactly what the league wanted.
Yeah?
It's exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, and you know they want the Knicks in the finals.
Oh, yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
But, I mean, so if you're just a casual or like you love the NBA but maybe you don't have a favorite team, it's fun competition, no doubt. I think a lot of people think Oklahoma City's the heavy favorite. They probably are, but I don't know. It feels like any of the teams left can win the championship.
Yeah, do we want to dive into the rest of the league?
Well, we'll get to that later. But getting back to the Cavs here, let's start with last night. I mean, the Cavs got off to this great start. Donovan playing great early. Evan Mobley playing great early. They're up by, what was the max? They were up by 17? 19, right, in the second quarter.
That almost doesn't matter anymore in the NBA. It doesn't matter how big the league is.
You're right. We've seen so many big comebacks.
There was a time where you could say, oh, my God, can you believe they blew a 20-point lead?
Right, now it happens all the time. Yeah.
However, in Game 4, you and me kept saying in the group chat,
yeah,
it's 20.
They'll make a run.
They'll make a run,
yeah,
and they never did. So you give Indiana credit for making a run. The Cavs, no matter how you slice and dice it, they blew two different 19-point leads this
and they were, obviously everything was on the line. They were playing great basketball early in this game, and then from the middle of the second quarter through the end of the third quarter, they were pretty terrible.
They couldn't make a shot.
Yeah.
And we could dive into all the reasons why the offense sputtered. And we have the numbers that prove they just missed shots that they had made all season. At the end of the day, and Jason and I kind of talked about it this morning, we'll talk about it again, Cleveland was unable to execute any of the things offensively that they executed at a high level during the regular season. The whole offense was built on getting into the paint, drawing the defense in, kicking out to shooters, and letting either shooters take an open three or attack the second closeout. In this playoff series, and Ant, we have the numbers, the playoff splits, if you want to pull these up here, the Cavs not only cratered from a shooting standpoint, they were missing open threes, they were missing good threes. You can see the regular season versus Indiana series stats and the splits, the three-point shooting on the bottom three numbers.
What is PIT?
Points in the paint.
Oh.
So basically, we'll start back with the front. The three-point shooting, they were the number one three-point shooting team in the league. They shot 38.3% during the regular season. Against Indiana as a team, that number dropped to 29.4.
All those numbers are, except for the points in the paint, which is the same.
And I'm going to explain the points in the paint in one second. Catch and shoot threes, CNS, 39.3%, top 5 in the league. 30.3% against Indiana. On wide open threes, 42%, number 1 in the NBA during the regular season. On wide open three-point attempts against Indiana, which NBA.com tracking considers a defender not being within 6 feet of you. They shot 25.7% from beyond the arc.
That's insane.
That's 10 points lower than what the lowest in the regular season was. Now, the drive numbers down slightly, points in the paint up slightly. If you're going to win a playoff series and shoot like that from three, the points in the paint and the drives have to be way up. You have to counter the lack of three-point shooting with something. The fact that the drives are down and the points in the paint are virtually even, and your three-point numbers have cratered, that is not a recipe for any type of offensive success. And Rick Carlisle and Kenny Atkinson said after the game, part of Indiana's defensive strategy was to let these guys attack one-on-one. And you could say Darius and Evan were hurt, and all that is valid.
I don't want to hear it.
I'm just saying it's a reality. It's not the reason. It's not like the Cavs are the bad boy Pistons. And it's not like the Pacers were the bad boy Pistons.
Sure.
This is not an elite level defensive team. It's a good defensive team, and give Indiana a ton of credit. I don't want to take that away from them. But this isn't an elite all-time defense that the Cavs shouldn't have been able to attack, even with those guys slightly hampered.
Well, and they only had 10 assists last night, the Cavs.
They went back to isolation basketball.
Right, and let's talk. you guys have already talked to death this game, and everybody knows what happened. But I want to look bigger picture here a little bit beyond the game, because when you look at the roster and how this series turned out, did we get it wrong? Like, did we overrate the roster?
Did you overrate the roster? No.
I mean, did we overrate the depth especially? Because I think we now know that Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro are useless playoff players.
I think we knew that about Okoro before.
Yeah.
I was a little bit surprised
Fair.
they signed him to the deal that they
Fair.
did.
We thought Dean Wade, okay, he'd been hurt. He's a useless. He can't play in the playoffs. He's useless.
Yeah. That's 3 years in a row.
And so now you have that knocks you down to 7. You want to say Sam Merrill? I don't know.
But the playoffs, you're not relying on Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro.
But they played a decent amount of minutes.
But the stars are what drive you
right
in the playoffs. That's who you've got to rely on. That's who you've
Yeah.
got to count on. It's the top of the roster, not the bottom of the roster. We've talked about it all year.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the finals, you're playing 8 guys, and you're trusting 7.
Yeah.
The 8th guy plays 6 minutes. You're relying on Donovan, Darius, Evan, Jarrett. That's who has to carry you
right
in these series. It's not those guys.
Right. Okay. Well, let me talk about Evan Mobley. Go ahead.
Can I just answer your do we overrate
Yeah.
the roster question before we dive into each of these guys individually?
Yeah.
I don't think we necessarily overrated the roster. We may have overrated the depth, and I think we try to tell you guys at some point they're not playing 10, 11 guys in the playoffs. I didn't think they were going to shrink from 10, 11 guys to having 2.5 that you trust. So I overrated.
Who were the 2.5?
Donovan.
The whole roster. I think you meant the bench.
No. The whole
Yeah.
roster. It was shrunk down to 2.5 guys in a game 5 that you really trusted. There is a clear delineation in playoff basketball versus regular season basketball. I don't think we overrated the Cavs in terms of who they are as a regular season team. I think we severely overrated what to expect from some of these guys based on the track record we had previously and how nothing that we saw in this playoff stretch against Miami and Indiana changed anything. I don't think we feel differently about anyone in a playoff scenario than we did coming into this playoff.
I feel worse.
Oh, that's in a good way.
Yeah.
Like nothing changed in a positive direction.
No. And here's the thing, guys. I need your insight on Evan Mobley here, because you guys have championed Evan Mobley. He certainly this regular season took a major step forward. But the flaw, like you guys have both consistently said, he has to be the best player, the alpha on this team if they're going to win a championship. And the problem, as I see it from my standpoint, is he, like early in the game last night, he commanded the ball.
He was awesome.
Took over. But there's way too many stretches, and maybe it's not his fault. I think he's got to take some of the blame, where he just disappears from the offense. And how do we correct that? Because it felt like the second half, I didn't even know if he was on the floor, because they don't get the ball to him. He doesn't demand the ball. Like there's got to be more a level of aggressiveness. And I get it, some of it's his teammates, but some of it's like, get me the effing ball. That's missing, it seems.
I saw Kevin Garnett do a podcast within the last year or so, just saying exactly that. Where
Okay.
and Evan has grown in that. This is before the season.
Yes.
Where KG was like, "Hey Evan, you gotta be a dog and come into the huddle and say, give me the mother effing ball."
Yeah.
And on the court, hand up, yo, come to me.
Yeah.
Part of it, Evan is relying. I mean, listen, the ball's in Donovan and Darius' hands most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's on those guys to feed him and get him going. That's what Kevin Love suffered from with Kyrie and LeBron. There's just not a lot of oxygen. You're waiting on them. But he can create for himself. Part of it is on him. We've seen him bring the ball up and initiate, and we've seen him get more comfortable with that. This is the evolution with him. That will continue to get better. I mean, I don't leave here shaking my head saying Evan Mobley was the problem in the series. I don't think that at all. I mean, what do you have last night? I just saw the numbers. What do you have, 24 and 11?
Right.
Or 24 and 11.
But it doesn't. He didn't take the playoff step.
But I mean,
to a level of dominance.
He had 12 shots. He should have had more shots last night.
Right.
And that's in his career.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley's played 25 playoff games. He's never taken more than 13 field goals in a game.
That's got to change.
And it's to what you said.
Yeah.
Partially on Evan for not being more assertive.
Right.
When I played, and once again, D3 basketball, not the NBA.
Yeah.
When you have a big man who's in the post demanding the ball.
Yeah.
As a guard, you got to get him the ball.
But he's not always demanding the ball.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
So that's partially on him. Second, it's on your guards to see a mismatch.
Yeah.
If Indiana switched, how many times did we get stuck, when I say we, the Cavs,
Yeah.
with Max Strus or Darius Garland
Right.
on a big in the
They always
post?
got him the ball.
And as soon as it happened, what
Yep.
did Indiana do? Made it a point,
Every
get the
time.
ball in low.
Yeah.
It's called mouse in the house, let him
Yeah.
go to work. When Indiana switched, there were times where Jared Allen, who did not play well this postseason whatsoever, especially against Indiana,
Yeah.
had a little guy on him. When Evan would have a little guy on him, and whether for 100 different variations and reasons, I can't give you a specific reason why, Donovan, Darius, Ty, whoever had the ball, wasn't making that entry pass and letting him go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also on Kenny Atkinson, because there are certain times where if you call a timeout, run a damn play for Evan.
Yeah.
And tell your guards,
Yeah.
Donovan, Darius, we have to get Evan involved. I go back to the game against Boston when the Cavs lost their first game of the season. Do you remember how good Evan was early in that game? And then he didn't get a touch.
Nothing.
For almost the entire. And then late in the game, he
Yeah.
finally got a few more touches and they started making a comeback. And I forget who asked the question, but someone asked Kenny, hey, do you think you should have got Evan the ball a little more? And Kenny said, hand up, my bad. I thought we were in the rhythm. I didn't want to call any plays to slow us down, but I should have got Evan the ball more. I thought last night in particular, and at other points throughout the series, but last night in particular, Kenny could have slowed the game down and forced in, run a play where Evan is the guy who's facilitating. And his usage rate in this playoffs, we'll talk about usage rate with other guys in a sec.
Yeah.
In the regular season was 22.7. It fell to 16.3 in the playoffs. Evan Mobley should not have his usage rate go down.
That's crazy.
When the stage gets higher. If anything, I want to run more offense through Evan, especially if as a team you can't hit a three.
Right.
If they're not making threes, give the ball to Evan and try and get some easy.
And I think that was the frustrating thing, guys, as not an NBA diehard, is I get that the league is obsessed with three-point shots. I get that the Cavs have been great all year. But the entire series, really the entire playoffs, they have not shot the three well.
They shot it well against Miami. Against
All right.
Indy, they were abysmal.
I'm so blinded by this
I know,
Indy
I know,
series, I forgot.
I know.
Okay, my bad. But in this series, they should, at some point, don't you have to say, let's score twos? I get it, three's worth more than two. But if you shoot, they were like 1 for, 15 or something at one point last night?
As a team, like I told you, they shot 25.7% on wide open threes.
They went 7 minutes without scoring.
I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Get the ball down low. They just didn't do it.
The offense as a whole
Yeah.
in this series looked a lot like the offense we saw against Orlando last year.
Oh, yeah.
And looked a lot like the offense we saw against New York 2 seasons ago in the playoffs. And this Boston series, when Donovan got hurt, you can kind of parse that out just because of the available guys they had. But when push came to shove, after 82 games of reinventing the offensive wheel for this team and unlocking and giving confidence to guys like Evan and Jared and Darius to find their best selves, and having a bench with depth and Ty and Sam and all these guys contributing, when push came to shove against a good defensive opponent in Indiana in the playoffs, the offense reverted exactly to what we had seen the 2 years prior.
Is this the worst fall on your face by any number one seed ever?
You want to give the stat I gave you?
Oh, well, so, see, yeah, we'll get to that 1 second. This is not the worst playoff collapse in Cavs history, for the record. 2010 was way worse than this, but I don't think they were a 1 seed. When they lost to Boston in 2010,
And we looked that up.
in the second round, and they lost LeBron as a result. LeBron walks off the court, rips his jersey off.
Yeah.
That was 1,000 times worse than this. As bad as this feels in the moment, that was the end of everything. So that one was worse. 2009, they lost to Orlando in the conference finals. I believe they were a 1 seed then.
They were a 1 seed in 2010 as well.
Okay, that was worse. That was worse than this.
61 wins that season.
And I know you brought up the Spurs the year that was the year when Golden State won all those games. Weren't the Spurs a 60-plus win team that year?
That's the stat Mike's talking about.
Yeah.
So I looked it up on StatHead last night. Prior to this year, and I think Mike tweeted this, right?
I tweeted out, yeah. There it is. You can just read it, Jason. But
all right.
That's basically
so
what it is.
16 teams counting the 2 this year. Prior to this year, 14 teams have won 64 games with a
it's a 9-point win margin.
9-point margin of win.
Yeah.
13 of the 14 reached the finals and 12 won a championship.
Right.
Cavs didn't get out of the second round.
I know.
Now we'll see what happens with OKC, but the Cavs are the only team out of the 16 to not even.
No, the Spurs also lost in the semifinals.
Oh, they lost in the
What
semis?
year was that? It was 2016, right?
15,
the
16,
Spurs
yeah.
in 16. The Warriors are the other team that didn't win a championship
Right.
in 16 because obviously they lost the Cavs.
Right. But the Spurs weren't getting past Golden State anyway. So this is one of the worst series losses.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it in the
time.
context of margin of victory and
Yeah.
total wins from the regular season, it's a brutal collapse.
You know,
I'm just saying 2010 was way worse than this.
Yeah.
We were talking before we got on air
Yeah.
about just how I hate to admit it, and it really does pain me to say this, Bull.
Yeah.
But your whole tirade of the regular season's kind of irrelevant. Like, I have a hard time countering that this morning. The Cavs' regular season success washed away in 5 games.
Right.
The Knicks went 0-10 against the best teams in the NBA. They're 1 win away now from the Eastern Conference Finals, beating Boston 3 times already.
Right.
I have a hard time defending that anything we see in the regular season is not completely irrelevant, but I think the stock and the amount of stock we put into it is
More now than
It's-
ever.
It's two different sports.
Yeah.
It's really a different sport in
Yeah.
the postseason because in the regular season, I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
In the regular season, you're playing a game every 2 days, 3 days, and the games are coming so fast. And a different assistant coach will have the scout for this game or for that game, and the strategy is a 15-minute meeting on the whiteboard before the game of, okay, here's your keys.
Yeah.
Box out, watch this guy, look at this guy. Okay, ready, let's go. And that's it. And you get to the play, and guys aren't playing hard, and you're managing minutes because you're waiting for this point. And then you get to this point, and then teams dig in, and they spend days poring over all of your sets. They know what you run as well as you know it.
Yeah.
And they build strategies based on what they see on film. I've had players and coaches tell me by the end of the playoffs, you know what they're running. Like, you know what's coming.
Right.
So it's a completely different animal. The Cavs, in the moment, we thought they handled it the right way. Like, they managed minutes. They tried to protect guys. All they were trying to do was get healthy, get to the playoffs healthy, and they still couldn't get that done.
Yeah.
And, and then as much as Kenny was saying guys were exhausted, guys were worn out, guys were gassed, Joe asked him last night, well, do you regret sort of limiting the minutes that you did during the regular season? Should you have played guys more to get them ready for this? And Kenny said, we had a plan. We're trying toward the end of the season to build guys up, to try and get 39 minutes out of Donovan. But then you get into the game and you're up by 20. And what are you going to do? You're going to play Donovan 39 minutes when you're up 20? No.
We'd kill him for that. If
So it's this balance that you're constantly trying to strike. And it just, if it could have gone wrong for them in this postseason, it did.
And it's I don't know if this is a problem for the NBA, but of the big 3 sports, it's the only one where, like, it doesn't, like, obviously the NFL, everything matters.
Yep.
And you say what you want, and somebody made the argument on my post game yesterday. It was like, well, baseball's playoffs is random, so the regular season doesn't matter. And I said, you could argue it doesn't matter in terms of being predictive in the playoffs, but it's so hard to make the playoffs in baseball that the regular season does matter. In baseball, you generally have to be very good to make the playoffs. Every once in a while, there's a division where everybody stinks. But for the most part, you have to be. Nobody ever makes the playoffs under 500. In the NBA, 2/3 of the teams make the playoffs. The NBA, if you watch the regular season, it's just about the entertainment value of the game itself, not about what it means for the postseason.
The baseball playoffs, the game changes a little bit with the way that relievers are used and bullpens are so heavily emphasized. But basketball feels like the sport that changes the most.
Oh, without a doubt.
Regular season to
games.
playoffs.
Yeah.
It's the entire game. Like, football is the same game.
I think you could argue, Jason, that the difference between the regular season and the postseason in the NBA is like the preseason and regular season in football.
I hear where you're going. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I hear where you're going.
I understand the point you're
In
making.
terms of preparation, right? Like in the NFL, in the preseason, you're just trying to kind of get guys ready for the year. You don't have a game plan. There's like no game plan. And then in the regular season in the NFL, obviously you spend it all week. And in the NBA, you just talked about it.
You
Like,
pour it over.
there's no preparation in the regular season or minimal.
Little. It's very little.
Yeah, in
It's
terms of
very
a
little.
game plan, maybe there's preparation.
Yeah.
How long did the Cavs went weeks without practicing?
Yeah.
So they practiced 3 times in 47 days.
Yeah,
after the
I mean-
All-Star break. Yeah.
I mean, I'll go back to when they won
Yeah.
the championship.
Yeah.
When you're the head coach, you don't have time to dig in and set the game plan.
Sure.
You're relying on your assistant coaches for that.
Yeah.
Then you get to the playoffs, and Ty Lue's the one that took over the defensive scout, and he would watch the film.
Right.
He would implement it, and then look at the Cavs' defensive numbers during the regular season, and then what? Part of that was effort. They weren't trying that hard.
Yeah.
And part of it was what Ty was doing to build them out defensively.
Yeah.
It's a completely different game.
Speaking of coaching, We've talked about some of the players. We talked about some of the X's and O's parts of it that just didn't work for the Cavs. But I also think while some players didn't meet the moment, and I've enjoyed all the conversations we've had with Kenny Atkinson. He's been great with the media, Coach of the Year, well-deserved. I thought Rick Carlisle ran circles around him in this series. And this was the first time, and you pointed this out a bunch of times during the regular season, Jason, that Kenny Atkinson had never been in this situation before. Yeah, he's coaching the playoffs. He took Brooklyn to the playoffs, and that was a really nice accomplishment for a young team that had no expectations. But this was the first time the pressure was on him as a head coach to deliver. And on a game-by-game basis, certain adjustments. He threw out the 3-2 zone in Game 3, worked to perfection.
But then Indiana adjusted. And
they didn't make the adjustment. Yeah. And last night, he decided to bench Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, that makes sense. I understand it. But then when the offense is completely sputtering, I thought maybe he should have went back to – and it's easy to play Monday morning coach. I get all that.
And he did.
He did, and Jerome gave him a spark for a minute.
And then Jerome gave him the spark and scored 8 points. He made 2 threes. That was the team's second and third three of the whole game.
Yeah.
But he gave him 8 points. There was a sport where he's – so, it's a learning experience, not just for the team, but I think maybe for more than anyone else. Like Kenny Atkinson
100%.
Going through that process in that seat, knowing what it takes to actually elevate your team, not just from a good regular season team to a great regular season team, but from a playoff contender to a championship contender. And you can't replicate that without going through it. And I'm not trying to give the Cavs a pass. I promise you I'm not giving them a pass. But I do think this is the kind of thing that sometimes a coach has to learn through and go through the devastation and disappointment to reach that next level. And I hope, I think Kenny can, knowing what we know about Kenny, kind of adapt and learn from this and tweak his approach to the game to put himself and his team in a better position the next time he's here.
He'll be better for this, just like the players, in theory, should learn from this. He said last night, you learn more in losses than you do in wins. I think Kenny will learn a lot from this. And, there were times throughout these playoffs where I thought that I don't love that ATO. That's the whole – how many times we talked about when you're the coach, when you call a timeout to stop a run, and how many times did we see it in Indiana on the road in particular?
Right.
You need a play coming out of a timeout. And
Carlisle called a timeout 54 seconds into the second half yesterday.
Yeah.
Cleveland scored 2 buckets.
Well,
and then Carlisle called the timeout, and they went on a run.
I was listening to the network feed at that point, and Jared said one of the things they were talking about was don't let the Cavs get downhill. First 2 possessions, Cavs right down the middle of the lane. He's like, nope.
And then it was all Pacers after that in that quarter.
And knowing when to use timeouts, knowing when to, again, what do you have coming out of the timeout? What's your best play? What's your go-to play? And we've seen what a disaster that was in Game 2, where they couldn't get the ball inbound, and couldn't get the ball across half court. Yeah. A lot of that falls on him. A lot of that falls on coaching.
And as you've pointed out a number of times, that was Ty Lue's strength.
I thought so. Yeah.
Right. That was he would come up with the big call, and
I thought he was really good.
He did a great job in that situation.
And it's not just offensively. I mean, we could talk defensively too. There was a point, and I have the Haliburton threes.
Yeah.
Like they were playing drop coverage, and part of the reason they were playing drop coverage on Haliburton, which is on the pick and roll, you want Jared Allen coming back, stopping the drive, and allows the guy to come over and then get back to his man. But when Haliburton's making 2, 3, 4 threes in a row, at some point, you got to change it up a little bit. I mean, this one, nice step back, but you'll see in a couple of the other ones, he has one from the logo, where Jared's just in complete drop coverage. And I understand the premise of playing, like right here. It's you could say the effort not there, whatever. He's in drop coverage. He's supposed to drop back because they don't want him in an isolation situation on Haliburton because Haliburton was torching him earlier in the series.
So instead you give him a wide open 3?
I don't think you drop that far, but change it up at some point. If it's not working and your back's against the wall in a Game 5 when you're down 3-1, blitz him, get the ball out of his hands, do something. I just thought they were too stagnant. I thought they stuck with the 3-2 zone too frequently in Game 4 after Indiana figured it out after Game 3. And like I said, I thought Kenny did a really good job in the regular season pulling all the right strings and putting all the right rotations together and making the substitutions. And in this particular series, I thought Rick Carlisle took him to school.
No doubt about it. And down the stretch, guys, obviously it was a close game in the fourth quarter. The Pacers had the lead, but the Cavs kept cutting it down. And it felt like every time the Cavs started getting momentum, the Pacers would hit a big shot. Every time.
They got it within one a couple different times.
Yeah.
87-86.
Right.
And then Thomas Bryant scored 8 straight points in the third quarter, which is crazy because Thomas Bryant, with all due respect, was like their 7th backup center this year. They got so many backup centers hurt throughout the course of the season.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they traded for Thomas Bryant in the middle of the season They gave up, and look at what they traded for Thomas Bryant. It was nothing. He was a throwaway guy, and next thing you know, he's scoring 8 points when the Cavs, for stretches, struggled to score 8 points as a team. And Thomas Bryant, in the final 3 minutes of the third quarter in an elimination game, scored 8 points. And there's one play I want to point out real quick. And we pulled up the Mitchell block. I think this play encapsulated the entire.
While Steve does that, they acquired a pick swap in 2031 for him, by the way.
My point.
So they gave him away for nothing.
That's probably a second-round pick.
Second-round pick swap. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Second round, yes.
Steve, it's 267 if you take 267.
Going to take pick 40 instead of 45.
Yes.
But this play.
Yeah.
Start of the third quarter. This is right out of the timeout, by the way. This is the first possession after Carlisle called a timeout. Cavs scored 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Carlisle calls timeout. Offensive possession. Cavs in great defensive spot. Mitchell gets the steal. And this is just, if running out of gas in a play is shown, this is the exact encapsulation of that. Donovan, healthy, dunks that every time.
Yeah.
90% healthy, lays it up. He slows down, allows Turner to catch up. Nembhard hustles back, gets Strus on the putback. The Cavs keep possession. But to me, like, if you were to put this series in one play, that was it. Missed opportunities.
And give, for all we're complaining about the Cavs, you got to give Indiana a lot of credit. Man, they played their asses off in this series. Like, the only guy that didn't shoot well yesterday for them was Nesmith. That was it. I mean, everybody shot well for them. Everybody played well. Who had a bad series for Indiana?
Nobody.
Like, they all contributed. Whoever they put on the court contributed. There was no Isaac Okoros on that team. There was no Dean Wades on that team. There was no Ty Jerome's on that team. And even Max Strus, who overall was one of the better players in the series, 0 points yesterday. Yeah. And apparently he sent a text. You guys know about this, but I didn't see it till this morning, telling everybody, hey, if you're not ready to win and blah, 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 don't show up. Well, he didn't show up. 0 for 9.
Yeah.
He believed in Cancun.
What's that?
He believed in Cancun.
He plays his ass off. Like
I know, but like he can't go 0 for 9, Mike. I don't care how hard you play.
I agree with you. Like they needed a couple of those to go in, especially late in the second quarter, early in the third. He got a couple good looks from 3 and just could not buy a shot.
No.
Not at all. Nothing.
Yeah. Really disappointing.